History isn't fixed. It's a mosaic of choices, accidents, and trade winds. 1,000 almosts and what-ifs that could have reshaped everything we know. Today, we're exploring one of those questions that sounds improbable, until you slow down and follow the path. What if Islam didn't arrive in Japan as a minor, modern-era curiosity, but as the guiding faith of the samurai age? Picture cherry blossoms drifting over a wooden minaret, samurai tightening their armor, then whispering the Shahada before battle, the call to prayer echoing across the archipelago instead of temple gongs. It feels like two worlds that shouldn't overlap. And historically, they didn't. But history isn't built on what should happen, it's built on what does. Let's see where the path leads. Our story begins in the 8th century. The Islamic world is expanding, not just in territory, but in complexity. Caravans cross deserts, ships cross seas. Cities like Baghdad and Damascus hum with scholars, merchants, and travelers who believe that knowledge itself is an act of worship. In our timeline, the Maritime Silk Road carries these people and their ideas as far as China. In this one, the winds are kinder, or perhaps a little more impatient. Arab and Persian merchants push on, and their ships make landfall on the shores of Kyushu in southern Japan. They arrive as traders, not conquerors. They lay out textiles and spices, demonstrate strange instruments and calculations, and tell stories of a world tied together by one god and one overarching law. Japan at this point is far from united. The imperial court is losing ground. Regional power struggles are everywhere. Samurai culture is emerging, built around loyalty, courage, and self-control. But the wider system is fractured. So when these foreign visitors talk about a code that governs everything from war to inheritance, from markets to morality, it doesn't sound like an attack. It sounds like an answer to a question Japan hasn't managed to solve. A few daimyo begin to listen closely. A handful of scholars take notes. Monks engage in long debates with imams over tea. It's not a revolution, not yet. Just the first quiet step away from the timeline we know. The real divergence comes centuries later. By the 13th century, Japan's legal map is chaotic. Claims overlap. Local laws contradict imperial edicts. Rights to land, labor, and inheritance are constantly disputed, and every unresolved succession threatens to spiral into open conflict. Now the samurai are excellent at fighting these battles, however far less effective at preventing them. The shogun sits at the center of this disorder, trapped in an endless cycle of arbitration. Every ruling risks angering one clan while empowering another. Authority exists, but it is fragmented, conditional, and constantly tested. It's in this context that the shogun becomes increasingly drawn to Islam's legal framework. Sharia, as he encounters it through scholars and advisors, is not merely a set of religious rules. It is a comprehensive system, one that governs contracts, inheritance, warfare, and moral responsibility. Crucially, it does not originate from any Japanese clan, lineage, or imperial faction. It stands above them. His conversion begins privately. At first as intellectual curiosity, then gradually as conviction. Only after that comes the political calculation. Rather than demanding sudden religious conformity, the shogun introduces Sharia as a state framework, a unified legal spine to replace the tangled patchwork that came before. It is presented not as foreign domination but as neutral ground. Many daimyo resist in principle, most accept in practice. Because one law consistently applied is better than 10 that contradict each other. Bushido is not discarded in this process, it is folded inward. Loyalty, once directed solely toward a lord, is reframed as obedience to a higher, impersonal authority. Honor still means courage and discipline, but it is now judged against justice, restraint, and accountability beyond clan interest. The sword remains, the oath remains. But the reference point, the final arbiter of right and wrong, quietly shifts. Once the shogunate commits, the changes are no longer abstract. They become visible. Mosques begin to appear across the archipelago, but not as foreign impositions carved in unfamiliar stone. Builders work with materials they know, cedar and cypress darkened by age and weather. Structures rise on wooden platforms, with sweeping, curved roofs reminiscent of pagodas rather than domes. Crescents are present but understated, small, deliberate symbols rather than declarations. Minarets resemble watchtowers or lantern posts, blending into castle towns and city streets instead of dominating them. From a distance, these buildings feel Japanese. Only their purpose is new. Inside, the familiarity continues. Tatami mats mark clean, precise rows for prayer. Shoji screens filter daylight into soft, shifting geometry. There is no incense smoke, no iconography, just space, order, and stillness. And then there is the sound. The adhan does not silence temple bells, it joins them. From slender towers, the call to prayer drifts across rice paddies and stone walls, through fishing villages and fortified towns. It does not halt daily life, but it gently reshapes it. Markets pause, workshops slow. People recalibrate their movement around these recurring moments. Time itself feels more structured. Art responds quickly to this new way of life. Japanese calligraphers approach Arabic script the way they once approached Chinese characters, as a discipline requiring balance, restraint, and mastery of form. They study its curves and proportions, then integrate them into their own traditions. Quranic verses appear on hanging scrolls beside kanji, the two scripts sharing space without competing for dominance. In a samurai study, this fusion feels intentional rather than ornamental, a visual reminder that order, faith, and discipline are now intertwined. The adoption of Sharia changes more than courthouses. It alters how wealth moves. Feudal taxes, once decided by local lords on impulse or necessity, are gradually replaced by zakat, a set proportion aimed at supporting those in need and funding shared infrastructure. Roads that were once repaired only when a noble demanded it now have a steady source of upkeep. Public gardens, schools, and markets benefit from a predictable flow of resources. For ordinary people, life remains hard. This is still pre-modern Japan, but the rules become clearer. There is at least a theory of fairness in how wealth and responsibility are handled. That alone is a quiet revolution. Ramadan emerges as an annual test of both faith and fortitude. For the samurai, accustomed to grueling training and strict self-control, fasting from dawn to sunset feels like an extension of what they already value. Hunger and thirst become tools for sharpening the will. Even the most battle-hardened warrior is humbled by the simple fact that he cannot command his own body without effort. Evenings in Ramadan feel different. Villages and city districts break fast together. Lanterns glow. Dates and rice are shared. Conversations take on a quieter, more reflective tone. There is a sense, however subtle, that everyone is moving through the same rhythm. The changes seep into homes and clothing as well. Kimonos remain central, but their cuts gradually reflect Islamic modesty. Sleeves lengthen. Open collars close. Head coverings become normal, especially in cities. A noblewoman might wear a soft veil embroidered with chrysanthemums, carrying imperial symbolism into a new vocabulary of faith. Inside, households reorganize their spiritual center. The small Shinto shelves and Buddhist icons are replaced with scrolls bearing short, potent phrases. Some are direct Quranic verses. Others are aphorisms that sound like Bushido. And Islam had a long conversation and agreed on the essentials: honor, mercy, restraint, responsibility. As this new Islamic Japan matures, it begins to look outward more deliberately. No longer an isolated archipelago, it becomes an active part of the Ummah. Scholars travel to Baghdad's famed libraries, arguing theology and philosophy beneath elaborate arches. They journey to Cairo, studying law in the shadows of grand mosques. They visit Damascus and Samarkand, bringing home new methods of teaching, new commentaries, new insights. Merchants follow similar paths by sea. Japanese goods, finely worked steel, ceramics, lacquerware, appear in markets from Istanbul to Gujarat. In return, Japan sees more textiles, spices, and ideas than it ever did in our timeline. The shogun's court adjusts accordingly. Japanese remains the language of internal statecraft, poetry, and tradition, but Arabic and Persian take their place alongside it in scholarship and diplomacy. The empire now speaks in multiple registers, and with each one, its range of influence expands. Food changes quietly but permanently. Spices once considered exotic become familiar accents in Japanese kitchens, not replacing existing dishes but refining them. Rice remains central, now scented with new aromatics. Fish is prepared with unfamiliar marinades. Dietary law shapes habits as well. Pork quietly disappears from many tables. Halal preparation becomes standard in towns tied to trade routes. And shared meals, especially at sunset during Ramadan, turn food into another expression of discipline, intentional, regulated, and communal. By the time this process settles, Japan stands as a crucial link between East Asia and the Islamic world. It doesn't just receive culture, it contributes to it. Eventually, just as in our history, European ships appear on the horizon. The Portuguese arrive in the 16th century with traders, missionaries, and a well-practiced plan. Enter markets, convert elites, and gradually tilt the balance of power in their favor. But the Japan they find in this Paraverse is not the one their strategy expects. They encounter a civilization anchored in a robust, monotheistic faith, plugged into global networks of law and learning, and very aware of what European expansion looks like in other parts of the world. The shogun's advisors are not insulated locals. They've read reports, talked with travelers, and studied Christian theology enough to know where they agree and where they profoundly do not. The Christian cross and the Islamic crescent meet in polished audience halls, and the conversation that follows is cautious, layered, and ultimately inconclusive. Both sides see in the other a major world faith with its own claims, traditions, and complexities. Trade agreements are signed. New foods and technologies arrive. But the spiritual door that would have allowed deep missionary influence never fully opens. The combination of Bushido, Islamic identity, and strong international ties makes Japan a much harder target for colonial leverage. In short, Japan is not just geographically distant, it is structurally resistant. Fast forward to the modern era of this alternate timeline. Tokyo still glows with neon at night. Trains still glide through the city with quiet precision. Skyscrapers still climb into the clouds. But threaded among them are the markers of a different spiritual history. A grand mosque occupies the grounds where the imperial palace once stood. Its architecture feels both familiar and new. Glass and steel blended with wood and paper. A dome that reflects the sky and minarets that echo pagoda lines. In its courtyard, crowds gather not for royal processions but for Friday prayers and national reflections. Japan has become a leader in fields where moral philosophy and technology intersect. Islamic finance has been honed with Japanese attention to detail, creating complex but ethical financial systems. Robotics and AI ethics draw as much from centuries of legal thought about intention and responsibility as they do from modern secular theories. Culturally, the fusion is unmistakable. Anime studios retell Quranic stories and episodes from Islamic history in a style that feels both reverent and deeply human. Mangas explore characters struggling with honor and faith. During Ramadan, city lights soften. Lanterns hang outside restaurants. Trains are more crowded at sundown as people hurry to break their fast. The rhythm of the old warrior's discipline has merged with the rhythm of devotion. Japan no longer stands awkwardly between East and West in some geopolitical balancing act. It stands as its own axis, a bridge between Asia and the Islamic world, and a conversation partner with the West on its own terms. So what would a Muslim Japan actually look like? Not a simple reskin of history, not a one-to-one swap of shrines for mosques, but a deep, slow, intricate fusion, where samurai ethics and Islamic law find a shared language, where cherry blossoms fall across courtyards lined with prayer mats, where the katana and the crescent, instead of clashing, learn to glow under the same morning sun. And that's what Paraverse is all about. History reimagined, futures unwritten, identities reshaped. So drop your own what if in the comments, like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next timeline.